There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. You may know her as the host of the fellow Broadway Podcast Network show, The Dramatists Guild Presents Talkback. She's also a award-winning playwright and actress, but she's here today to discuss cats because she was Sillabub on the third U.S. national tour. So welcome, Christine Toy Johnson, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I am excited. I always love anytime I can talk to somebody else from the Broadway Podcast Network that knows cats, because I really thought for a long time I was the only person that talked about it.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah, there's not a big cats podcast market. I think I'm the sole person there right now. There was a couple that have popped up and have faded away. So I'm carrying the Jellicle torch.
Amazing.
So I want to start. I always love, my first question usually is to everyone is asking, their first experience and love of the show. And I've talked a lot to the 2016 revival cast and the most recent US tour and super fans who are, who generally saw the 1998 movie in school or something like that. But your tour predates some of this. So I always love hearing, what was that first, what was the interaction to becoming part of that cast, this kind of infamous tour? And what was just your take on the show at that time when it was so a little bit new, so unique, and the first time it's really going nationwide for people to see?
Yeah, it was really a very exciting thing to be a part of because, as you said, it was the first company that really was traveling around the country. The first national tour did some longer sit downs in, I think, Boston, Chicago, DC. The second national was actually the Los Angeles company. So they sat in Los Angeles. And then there was us. And so the whole process from auditioning to being hired and then going into the rehearsal process. And then we opened actually in West Point. And I remember this really clearly because our very first audience was made up of all the cadets from West Point. So it was a sea of people in white uniforms.
Wow.
And then we didn't know how they would respond because who knows? And they stood up at the end and cheered. And it was really, really exciting. And then
that is crazy.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And then every city we went to was seeing the show for the first time. So we were sold out everywhere. The audiences were just so excited to be there and clamoring for the show. I remember the first stop, I think, after West Point was Atlanta. And we were in a cab, a couple of my castmates and I were in a cab from the hotel to the theater. And so I think we said, we're going to the theater where Cats is playing. And the cab driver insisted that we were wrong about the title. He insisted that it was really called Those Darn Cats. And we said, no, the show is called Cats. And he said, no, I'm sure of it. It's Those Darn Cats. Okay.
Those darn cats.
Just please take us to the theater where Those Darn Cats is playing.
Yeah. I love anybody who's just adamant that when they're wrong, especially trust me. What do you know in the show? I'm positive. So walk me through what before you get this role, what was the buzz around even the audition? Was it, because again, it's still kind of new. Was there a lot you knew about it?
I had seen it. I am one of those people who I think you've talked to before who said, I believe it was more fun to do than to see. So I was not, admittedly, a big fan of the show when I saw it.
Oh, okay. No, let's talk about that now. Forget my other question. Tell me about your first experience. Tell me about what you did not enjoy.
I just thought it was so weird and I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't really understand the story. On the other hand, it was certainly fascinating to look at. There were just, you just never saw anything like that before on Broadway. And And I want to say also that I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. So I was lucky enough to have Broadway as sort of my local theater.
Wow,
And so
yeah.
I saw a lot of shows. And this one was just, it really was astounding in so many ways. But I have to say, I think because I couldn't follow the story, it wasn't until we were in rehearsal and we were told what the story was that I went, oh, okay. So Macavity kidnaps Demeter, and okay. And then the kittens, and then Grizabella and the tire. Okay, now I understand.
So what was give me your story from when you saw it the first time, before you were told? What did you walk out? Like, how did you interpret the first viewing?
I had no idea.
No idea, just
a lot of cats singing and dancing. Some were, I guess, I don't know, they had yogurt things on their heads. I see now that version is a little different from the revival. You know, they cut do you know what I'm talking about with the yogurts on the heads?
No.
See, that's from Peaks and Pollicles, which was cut from the revival. But we had to wear these hats that were like yogurt. What do you call it? Containers.
A yogurt container.
Yeah, because all of the stuff that the cats would use was from the trash, right? So
the version I saw had like shoe boxes as hats.
Yes, there were those too, but we had some yogurt heads, and then I didn't know what was going on.
So you saw the story, didn't understand it, struggled through kind of following it, which is I think a lot of people who see it, but now you're in the show. And you get told a story. What were you told? How would you explain now, as the expert who has been explained the story? How would you explain it to somebody who was, going to go see the next tour or the next casting when it comes back out in some capacity?
I would say it's the story about a tribe of cats that is deciding which one is going to transcend our world and go to their equivalent of heaven, which is the Heaviside Layer. And so the task of the tribe is to choose which cat will go on to her next life.
And how are they choosing? Like what? I mean, that's a very overarching theme.
It is, right? I don't remember actually that part.
Okay.
Because when I started thinking about this, talking to you, I did feel like I couldn't really come up with why we would choose. I know this is not the question yet, and we'll probably come to it like much later, but why we did choose Grizabella, I'm not sure.
It's the $1 million question. And I have a lot of episodes explaining why I don't agree with that decision.
Yes, I know.
We will get there. Get there. I would love to hear a little bit about the reaction. I know you sold out. I know you were in outdoor theaters. You were in theaters that were huge. What was the reaction to those darn cats? That
it was like being in a rock show, really.
Yeah,
people loved it. People loved it. Even though the longer version, which had the Peaks and Pollicles still in it, and it had also this very lengthy opera section that was cut from the revival as well, with that where Gus Growl Tiger turned into Growl Tiger, so his character is usually called Gus Growl Tiger, and Jelly Lorem becomes Griddlebone, and the Siamese cats come out and they sing this huge. It's a very elaborate number with the boat and all that.
And then that actually made it into the newer movie. That there is a Growl Tiger Griddlebone boat scene that came out of nowhere. It. Oh yeah, you're not missing much. Okay. But that came out of nowhere, and I feel like, again, I have done enough research on this show now I've not seen that because my whole knowledge is 2016, the two times I saw it, and the 1998 movie,
right?
Which I don't also believe it's in.
Oh, wait a minute, no, it should be in the 98 movie.
Is it in the 98 movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have seen that.
Okay. On VHS.
Yes. Like It was on Broadway HD or on demand or something like that. And it was one of the quarantine things we watched.
Oh,
Also, as we were getting ready to work on this benefit we did, I had to relearn, Jellicle songs. Who remembers
you
Jellicle
don't remember
songs?
all the lyrics? So I do want to pivot a little bit because I want to talk about Sillabub.
Mm-hmm.
I recorded episodes on I don't want to call them the main characters. I call them the song characters, where I really broke down everyone who either had a song or had some significant, like big part of this. As I've learned more, as I've had these interviews and these conversations with cast members, I think I undervalued Sillabub, how much role Sillabub plays, because she doesn't have just like a song, but she does play a huge part in a bunch of other stuff. But because I haven't done as much of this back research on her, I don't have as many like random cat theories or all kinds of stuff. So I'm wondering what you were told about Sillabub. Like, what is her backstory to the Jellicle tribe?
I don't believe I was told a backstory, but I'll tell you what my feeling is about her.
I was going to say, what's your made up? You had to have come up with your own backstory, though, or some version.
Don't forget, she sings "Memory" with Grizabella. Mm-hmm. So I always think that she really represents the hopeful innocence and the curiosity that kittens have, not as opposed to, but sort of as opposed to Grizabella, who is leaning more into her past and her pain in her life. Mm-hmm. So I feel like Sillabub is, well, first of all, in our production, probably because I was so close to Joanne Hunter, who played Victoria, we were two of the really fun kittens who enjoyed hanging out. And Joanne, I don't know if she told you this story. She probably didn't tell you the story, but she used to hide candy all over the set. And so we would have certain times, especially during Mistopheles, where, we would go over to the car. We'd be hanging out by the car hood, and we'd go into the little exhaust pipe and pick out a little gumdrop or something like that as a treat during the show. So my experience was that Sillabub and Victoria were pals, and we hung out together, and we just had a lot of fun, and we're very curious and innocent and happy to be cats in the junkyard.
Do you think that would be your sister then, or do you think it was just a best friend?
I think she was my best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of the rumor mill on Sillabub is, as the kitten, mm-hmm. is that there's a lot of question marks on who's the parents.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if you have an opinion. I think the most common is that it actually is potentially Grizabella. That's because like that's where you sing with her. Or that is like your not role model per se, because I don't think Grizabella is necessarily a role model, but also like a little bit of the it's with being the first cat to kind of touch Grizabella in that moment. That is the thought of where it could be mom, or it could be.
I never thought of that, honestly. I don't think we went into as deep a dive as we would normally in the dissection of backstory and etc.
That's why I'm trying to figure this out. This is the whole thing I've become interested in, is just understanding what cats are doing outside the show.
That's fascinating. I will tell you that when I was listening to your interview with Michael Kushner, and he was talking about Quaxo. And, those cats have also a whole nother life. And I was thinking about Plato, the cat Plato. Mm-hmm. And in our version, this is just something we made up. The actor David Roberts, who played McCavity and Plato, he did those both roles at the curtain call. During the curtain call, when there's like a free for all, we're just jamming out and doing whatever. He actually, he's a great tumbler. He taught me how to do a cartwheel over the over the year and a half that we did the show together. So maybe maybe Plato was involved in parenting Sillabub? I don't know. Now, I've never thought about that until now.
So if we didn't have a rumor, we're starting a rumor.
Yeah, let's start it.
That Plato could be Sillabub's father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just gonna add this. I mean, basically the way that this Wikipedia page, from what I've seen, is that most of these rumor mills are started because someone added it for some other thing. So right now I'm gonna add this, and this is gonna be the source.
Okay.
It says that Plato is now the father of Sillabub, potentially in one cast.
Yeah. Anything's possible.
As verified. What other?
As verified
by Christine Toy Johnson.
Oh my God.
That's how this all works. This is all the whole rumor mill. I'm confident that this is the way the entire Cats like family tree and all of these rumors are started, because of, I really think a lot of the relationships you see, I think there's a lot that's very thoughtful of Trevor Nunn or like that. So like there's very much these two, like the twins are clearly have I think like I never picked up on that, and now I'm fascinated by that but they have very, very much so. It's like they react first. It's like there's very clear things that they need to be together. They do those things. Mm-hmm. The rest, I firmly believe, are these two were in a different show on Broadway together and are very good friends. And whether their cats are supposed to be together or not, they're going to kind of play off each other. And now there's this rumor that maybe those two are together or brother, sister, or this. And it's like, no, it's just like those two are friends. Like those two are friends off stage. And that's what happened.
I have to say, I'm a little ashamed to admit that I never thought of who her parents were, because as a playwright and an actor, I sort of pride myself in doing a lot of deep thinking about characters. So really, I'm really sad to admit that I never thought about her parents before.
What other characters did you have thoughts on their backstory? Whether they're like what were told to you or just like
Demeter, for sure. Demeter and McCavity.
Abusive relationship.
And so that's how the whole play starts, with her darting around, I think, trying to avoid him. And then, of course, he has that whole section who's the Rumpus Cat. And do you know that part? Was that still in 2016?
Maybe. I don't remember if that was in the 2016, to be honest. But yeah, I also was mesmerized in 2016, and none of this, like, there could have been a lot of stuff that happened that I'm just like, I don't remember a single thing, because I've learned the show as I've recorded these episodes a lot more than I ever picked up the 3 times I've seen it.
Well, I think that that's part of it, that there's so much up for interpretation. And so you can just let your imagination go wild and think about all of the things that that are in the backstories.
Mm-hmm. Do you think anybody, when they were watching your tour, like any of the cadets, were sitting there going like, those two, definitely mom and dad?
I doubt it. Look, I have great respect for the longevity of the show and how the music is fantastic, and how innovative it was, especially at the time that it began, because the costumes and the set design and the lighting and all of the magic that really happened was very innovative. And perhaps that's why we didn't spend so much time on the dramaturgical elements that we're now discussing, but that, just to learn the whole thing was a lot. And then to, do justice to the choreography and entertain the people with it.
And what I've learned over time with your cast is that it's not just that you learned the Cats choreography, but because of the benefits you were doing at the time, you were learning all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. I took a 6-month period off in the middle of the tour. So I was not in the benefit that Jonathan and Joanne talked about, where they did a chorus line. They learned a lot of the stuff from a chorus line. But I did do other benefits where I think I was mostly singing. Somebody sent us a recording of a benefit we had done, I think in Cincinnati in the end, Boston maybe. So towards the very end of the tour, and they had a recording of it that's quite good, and sent us all of the songs, and it was pretty amazing to listen to it.
An
And
audio
also
recording?
an audio recording of each song, and also very, very, very sad to hear the voices of so many people that we lost in that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually would love to hear a little bit about the benefit that you did last year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I know you were very involved, both helping, to write it, and then also you saying part of the memory that you redid. Tell me about how that came together and your involvement with it.
Well, in the spring, so early in the pandemic, we still have a Facebook group still that we keep in touch with each other in, and Austin Chaton, who was the original standby for Old Dude, said, "Hey, I think we should get together and do something for all of our colleagues who are really suffering from having lost their jobs during the shutdown, and how can we help? What can we do?" And so he approached Jonathan Cerullo, who was Skimbleshanks and who has become a director and a producer, and Joanne Hunter, who has become a Broadway choreographer. And so people just came together and said, yes, of course, what can we do to and Jonathan's idea, of course, was to approach Broadway Cares and the Actors Fund. And so that's how it all sort of started. And because Joanne has worked with Andrew Lloyd Webber on School of Rock and his upcoming production of Cinderella, she was able to get us into talk with really useful and make sure we had the permission to do everything, because we wanted to do everything right. We wanted to make sure we had all the permission to do things. So then we talked to people at Broadway Cares and at the Actors Fund to make sure that they were on board, and then we got a date that we could release the whole program, and Jonathan and Joanne and I think also Jimmy Walski, who had been our dance captain, and Austin, I think they were in on the beginning meetings to kind of conceptualize what it should be, and it turned into a half-hour long program. Mm-hmm. Where I think we had 34 of us involved from the original touring cast and including any replacements. Everyone was invited to participate, and Joanne happens to be also married to Brian Ronan, of course, Tony Award-winning sound designer, who was on our show as well in the second year, and so he helped us with the sound mixing, because you can't everyone who has done this over the last year will understand, to try to record singing and with a lot of people is very difficult. So you from remotely. So we each had to record our sound and then videotape ourselves, and I recorded the sound separately so it would sound better, than just singing into my iPhone. Mm-hmm. And we also did, my husband's a photographer and filmmaker, so we also went outside and we had different locations, and we did the whole thing. But so they had asked me to write a script based on the concepts they already had come up with. So that was a very fun assignment to do. And then when we talked about including memory, it just made sense to have not only the Grizabella section, but to have Sillabub also to represent, like I was talking about before, the hopeful sentiments of the song.
Yeah, and it came together beautifully, which I think.
Yeah, it was very intense, and to try to also relearn Jellicle songs. I'm not going to lie. But also, and so it was very labor intensive, and Jonathan worked so hard on it, but I was so proud of how it ended up, and the editing. And I'm really sorry I can't remember the name of the editor. His first name is Matthew, and I'm really sorry that I can't remember his last name. But he did an amazing job. And Matt Zarley, who was our Pouncival, he he directed and conceived of the memory section, which I think is quite brilliant because it shows what was happened to Broadway and New York City, and the sadness that we've experienced in Broadway shutting down, and the cautious optimism I think we have about returning. And this was in the summer, so we really had we had even less idea than we do now about the return. And we raised, I believe, $25,000 in that one weekend. And I think I believe the donation page is still up, so people have a chance to still help. And it all goes towards the COVID-19 relief fund that Broadway Cares is sponsoring on behalf of the Actors Fund. I believe that's how to say it, but they're in collaboration with each other, and it all goes to people in our industry who have lost a lot of their livelihoods during this time.
And the site is still up, and we'll link it in the description. So if any amount you can give is very much appreciated. But yeah, it did raise a bunch of money on the weekend, and it was such a cool thing to be able to see an entire or most of the cast come back together and do this thing. And then as I've talked to many members of your cast recently, it's been really fascinating because I didn't think about I think a lot of us are taking for granted how well that was edited. And it's just like, oh yeah, everyone sang, and it's like, oh no, everyone sang and someone pieced that all together.
Yes.
And it was seamless. So it was like very, very, very well done. And it made it a fun 30-minute experience to watch and get to hear, not a new take, but like another version of memory, and which was beautiful, and kind of get to hear stories in between and everything that happened. So I thought it was like a really fun benefit to get to
thank you, to
participate in, to help and to see.
Yeah, Leslie Ellis sings just this beautiful, beautiful rendition of Memory. It's been great to be reunited with a lot of people working on this.
That's amazing. I want to rapid fire a couple things of fun questions, and then we gotta talk about Grizabella.
Okay.
So first one would be, if you could play any character in the show, forget male, female, anything, whether you could sing it, dance it, who would you want to play?
I always wanted to play Jelly Lorum / Griddlebone, because of because I think she's so warm, and Joanna Beck, who played in our company, was so beautiful, but it's really warm, and also got to sing the soprano diva parts. And I'm a soprano, and I always wish I had gotten to play that part.
Mm-hmm. What about your favorite and least favorite character?
Well, Victoria's probably not my favorite character, but again, probably because she's my pal.
Yeah.
And we had a really good time, and we ate candy together, when we shouldn't have been.
Victoria might be in your cast, might be my favorite character if they're hiding candy around the stage.
Yeah, exactly. My least favorite character probably would be McCavity, just because he terrorized everyone. So
I love it. Your choices are very much into the plot. Which is good. For as much as you clearly didn't like that first one, it resonated. Like you did pick up that McCavity's the protagonist, and
yeah, and as much I have to say this, as much as I was not a fan of the show when I saw it, I loved doing it. It was awesome, and it was great to be in this company that was getting to share the show with people for the first time, and we had a very close company, and it was fun. So I had a great experience doing it.
Did you see the 2016 revival? Like, how many times have you seen it since?
Not that many times. We were invited to the closing night on Broadway, whatever year that was. You probably know.
In the revival?
No, the original.
Oh, the original? No,
yeah. Okay, so
I should, but I don't.
Yeah, you should, Mike. So we were all invited to the last performance, and also big blowout party on Chelsea Piers, which was amazing. It was an amazing with fireworks and all kinds of things. So I saw it then, and then I saw it. I'm a Tony voter, so I saw the 2016 revival, and it's really interesting because some of the choreography was still intact from Gillian Lynn's or inspired by it. And I could feel my body doing some of the music would put on. I'd feel my body doing, starting to raise my arms, and
it's a reflex really for you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't start singing.
Well, no, that would be annoying.
I've been to shows where that's not been the case.
I know.
Okay, my favorite song.
So, speaking of like feeling that visceral response to the music, this probably is going to be a weird response, but I love the Jellicle Ball.
The Jellicle Ball. I don't think that there's that many people that have said that as an answer.
It's just because it was a bear to dance, because it's like, I don't know, it felt like it was 17 minutes long. I don't know if really it was that long, but it was very, very long and rigorous and required every ounce of stamina you could muster. But there's something about it that I just love dancing, and the music just really came into my body and my soul, and just it was fantastic. It was really fun to do.
It's an interesting number, because it is this like very beautiful and amazing thing to watch, and then I learned that it's basically an orgy.
Well, no, we were never told that. So
that seems to be a consensus. Okay. So maybe that's a more recent interpretation of it.
Yeah, I have a feeling we were a little more innocent about the way we looked at the show back.
Yeah, a little different in the 80s, and still kind of new. Now there's a jaded version. There's people that love it or hate it, and so everyone's got a version now for how they're saying it. My last rapid fire question before we talk about Grizabella, and I'm super interested for this because this is like, I think, your wheelhouse. But there is a group of fans who have a Tumblr accounts where they actually interact writing as characters. And so they basically just interact with each other. So I'm writing as one of the cat, you're writing as another cat, and we're in whatever situation we're in. If, as a writer, which cat would you want to write for? Like, which cat would you say, this is a storyline I want to figure out, right? This is the character that I could do a lot with.
I would have to say Sillabub, because
now you know it.
Well, because you've pointed out that I don't really know it. So.
Yeah. Now you got to fill in the blanks.
Figure it out. I would want to figure that out. Also, I am a self-described pathological optimist, and I think that I would enjoy writing the hopeful side of Sillabub's thoughts and inspirations, that kind of thing.
That's fun. I took the total opposite route. I thought, let's write McCavity. Let's just be the villain, because that's not my personality type. And so it'd be fun to kind of write something totally different.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, time for the $1 million question.
Uh-huh.
I have argued for episodes that I don't think Grizabella is the right Jellicle choice. And so I'm curious with your thoughts on this, if you agree or disagree. And if you're going to defend her, I'd love to hear your defense. And if you're going to say somebody else, I'd love to hear why somebody else.
Well, I actually probably have both the...
Oh, okay. I'll let you tell me both sides, but I want to hear which one you would choose if you had to vote. But I would love to hear both arguments.
Well, I have great compassion for Grizabella, and I think because I got to sing with her, so I have that compassion for her. I do feel like she was very closed off to us. And so I wonder why she was chosen, because she wasn't really a part of the tribe as much as, say, Gus.
Mm-hmm.
The theater cat, he was so dear and struggling with a lot of things. So I also have compassion for Gus. And so in thinking about this question, because I knew it was coming, I do feel like Probably I would choose Gus because he was part of our community and he told his story to us. But on the other hand, who knows? There's so many things that we don't know about people. We don't know about their history, and so I would be loath to turn my back on Grizabella, knowing that she had so much hardship in her life. I mean, look at her clothes. She had a lot. She's been through a lot.
That is fair. I think that it's fair to say we don't know the full story.
Mm-hmm.
I like to fill in the blanks, though.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like, there's some of the beauty in there. We know a few things, but it's very clear by the rumor mill. We don't know a lot of things.
Right.
And that is, I think, part of my biggest reason why I don't pick her is because from what I do know, I struggle to see how that would make her the choice. So I know there's stuff missing. I know there's some blanks we need to fill in, which is, I think, clear. I have a guess at what happens when she left the tribe and when she's coming back. And I think that it's probably a darker version now. I think now I'm starting to rethink all of my thoughts. If you're saying that it's the more recent group of people that have this dark version of the show, is more family and wholesome in the earlier runs. But from what I read and from what I interpreted and kind of looked, is that she went off and did some things that aren't appropriate or weren't great or weren't very well, and she's coming back beat up and ready to kind of try to hopefully be rejoin the tribe.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with her being the choice. I think you can make the argument of redemption. I think where I actually really struggled the first time I saw it is that she just comes back and immediately is rewarded. Whereas I think she's probably the leading candidate for next year.
Okay, that's fair.
But that's actually not at all how I walked out. This is as I've thought about it more. I walked out and I watched it with like a singing competition. And so I just purely was like, oh, which cat gave me the best performances? And it wasn't her. I mean, and it was great. Like her memory is, amazing. Like there's no doubt that it's fun to watch someone belt that. But I'm like, yeah, if America's voting, if I'm voting at home on my phone, like everyone else that, an American Idol, X Factor type of thing, like I'm probably voting for Tugger, or I'm voting for Mr. Mistopheles or somebody else where I was like Munglu Jerry and Ripple Teaser, where I was like mesmerized and like really blown away by.
Well, let me ask you this though. So, but all of the cats that you just mentioned seem to be pretty much in their prime.
Yeah.
So would you really want them to then go off into the Heaviside Layer?
I think it depends on what you think happens with the Heaviside Layer. If it's a reward for being the best performance, which is how and I know my interpretation is wrong. The answer should be Gus. That's the most common real thought. But when I watched it, I thought I was watching those darn cats X Factor. And I was very, very, very confused. And I was like, oh, when you watch an X Factor or some of these other shows, they have all ages. They have kids to adults to like very senior. And it's not, there's all kinds of pieces to that. So I thought everyone's eligible, and they're, instead of winning a show and $1 million, a Vegas show and $1 million, it's, you get to get killed. And I was like, it's already a weird show, but that was how I interpreted it. So that's why I know that's the premise I've kind of taken. But if you really do look at it, I do think the part that I struggle with Grizabella is that to be rewarded right away after being gone for so many years, and then coming back and being immediately selected seems off to me.
Okay.
That's my hot take.
Okay. Yeah, I had not. Well, I didn't know this other piece of information that you've uncovered. So I don't know. I have to think about that some more now.
Yeah, there's a lot of arguments. I've heard a couple creative ones that I love. I get the redemption story. I mean, there's no doubt that some very, very talented historic people worked on this play and came up with the story and plot. And so who am I to judge, except for to have some fun, poking fun at it. But I would like to write a different ending.
Well, I think that's sort of the beauty of theater, right? That we're talking about this show that's been around for literally decades, and it's sparked a lot of imagination, and that's a pretty amazing thing. It doesn't happen all the time.
It is a incredibly polarizing show.
Yeah,
that has a lot of very passionate fans. It has some weird hate to it.
yeah,
And it has a lot of confusion.
yes,
But it is almost universally known.
yes.
And that's what is kind of crazy. I mean, this whole thing has spun off from one joke that that was made in passing that has turned into this. But my knowledge, this was a show that when it came back, I was just like, well, I never saw it. I didn't know much about it, but I was like, I knew I needed to see it, even as just a casual Broadway fan. And so that's how I ended up there. And then I was very confused and a little too sober to see it the first time, and needed more belief. But it is such an open-ended world that has been built that it gives you the ability to kind of play in it in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
And really the poetry of T.S. Eliot, that's really something fascinating to look at too. If you just pick it apart, by the great music and the poetry, and then what they did to make it into what they did.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting to think about.
Absolutely. Totally agree. What else? I'd love to hear what else you're working on. I know we talked a little bit about the podcast. I know you've got a lot of things in the works. So tell me, what is kind of on your plate right now?
Well, yeah, it's been an incredible year. Actually, I've been on the first national/North American tour of Come From Away for 18 months before the coronavirus so rudely made us stop, and so. Eventually we will go back on the road, and so we'll do that some more, and that's been an amazing experience. In the same way that Cats was, in some ways, in that cities are seeing the show for the first time when we visit. And so that's been incredible. I've had the really good fortune of going back to work on TV the last couple of months since the safety protocols have been really developed, and so I've had a chance to guest star on a couple of on Bull, where I'm a recurring judge, and NCIS New Orleans. So that was fantastic, and then I'm a writer, so I'm writing I'm doing a commission, writing a new musical with Jason Ma, one of my collaborators, for Village Theater outside of Seattle. I just wrote a short piece for Ars Nova that will be part of their programming in April, and a lot of different writing projects that are in various stages of development. And at the Dramatist Guild, I'm on part of the elected leadership of the Dramatist Guild and chair of their Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. So we're doing a lot of work with town halls to talk about these expanded conversations that are happening surrounding access and inclusion, et cetera.
Yeah, and now you've got to write Sillabub's story, so you got another writing project on your plate. Tell me a little bit about Talkback, because I'm very familiar with it, and I think it's just such an incredibly powerful podcast with really incredible topics, and so I'd love for people to kind of know a little bit more about it too.
So when while I was on the road, I would take some opportunities to talk with Dramatist Guild members in places where I could meet up with the regional rep and we could organize something. So I did these conversations that surrounded diversity, equity, inclusion issues, questions that people had, things people wanted to talk about in LA, Seattle, Salt Lake, and San Francisco. And what I came away with was that a lot of people had similar questions and concerns. And so I came back to the committee that I chair, and I said, I have this idea for how we might be able to disseminate information, other people's experiences with how they've navigated these issues. What if we do a podcast? And I talked to different people across the industry about topics like cultural appropriation versus appreciation, writing outside your lived experience, etc. And that turned into the podcast that we have that we're so happy to be on Broadway Podcast Network's part of their family. And we've done 2 seasons. The first season we did the regular way in studios with in the room with each other. Also, I was on the road, so they would get me space in a studio in wherever it was, like Chicago and Cleveland and all these places, and we could talk to each other, but in studios. And then, of course, this season in the summer, we all did from our quote unquote home studios with our, now we have all the equipment that we need, except for actual booths and engineers in our homes.
Yeah.
But so there are 2 seasons. The first one focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion issues. The second one focuses on access. So that means a lot of different things. And we're looking forward to recording our 3rd season, hopefully this summer.
Amazing. Yeah, I've always loved being part of the Broadway Podcast Network. I think what I love is the wide range of content that is that the network's given a home to and has given voices to. And so it's kind of fun to be, with my show being what it is, to have to be part of a network that also has these very thoughtful conversations and very important topics, while I'm sitting here arguing why Grizabella was the wrong cat
It's great to have balance. It's great to have balance.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also just want to say that the conversation started out as being very dramatist-centric, really talking to writers. And then as we've expanded we've been talking to industry people from across the boards. And it's been great to have inquiries to spark more conversations about access and inclusion.
That's amazing. Final, probably most important question.
Oh, okay.
How do we stay in touch? Social media, website, how do people stay in touch with you?
Thank you. So my website is my name. So it's www.christinetoyjohnson.com. And then on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at CToyJ, CTOYJ.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, for being here, for humoring me through all of this.
It was great. It was so much fun.
For telling me about those darn cats. I think that's the only way I'm going to refer to it from here on out.
Yeah.
I love it. I hope the guy, the driver in Atlanta is listening and is they're still wrong. It's still those darn cats.
Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's wonderful to be able to have a lighthearted conversation about something. And also, for better or worse, it reminds us that the power of theater is really something else. And it really transcends all kinds of time periods and theories and preferences for which cat you'd rather see go on the tire into the ceiling of the theater.
Yeah, I did explain it to somebody one time. I said, "Yeah, a bunch of cats sing, and then one of them murders, but that's a good thing. So don't worry. That's how we break it down." So. There's a place for everything. I'm glad I've carved out this very niche region of the podcast land to discuss.
I'm sure there's nobody else doing this.
I don't think there's anybody else that is arguing on behalf of every other cat. That's what I'm here for. That's what the beauty of the podcast world is.
Right.
Everybody with a mic can have a voice.
That's right.
Well, thank you again. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.